Let's go to Psalm 65. Psalm 65. Follow along with me on the screen, or if you have a Bible or a digital Bible of some sort, follow along with me. Psalm 65, a little bit of an obscure passage, but I want to stay here, and I'm going to do something a little bit different. It's not going to be super theologically deep, but it's going to be really powerful today. And so track with me here. Psalm 65, verse 5 out of the New Living Translation. David, psalmist, poet, worshiper, musician, loved God, knew the favor, knew the victories of God, had incredible experiences with God in his life, is writing this, and he says this: you faithfully answer our prayers with awesome deeds. How many can kind of relate to that? God is faithfully answering your prayer. Maybe you came out of a situation recently, and he's faithfully answering you. He's giving you the solution. You see, man, like that was a miracle. Like that there's no other explanation than the fact that then that was a miracle. I shouldn't have got that job. I wasn't skilled. I didn't have the education, but for some reason they hired me, and now I'm promoted, and now I'm the top dog. That was a miracle. Faithful. Performs awesome deeds. He says this: "O God, our Savior, you are the hope of everyone on earth, even those who sail on distant seas. You formed the mountains by your power and armed yourself with mighty strength. You quieted the raging oceans with their pounding waves and silenced the shouting of the nations." Verse 8, "Those who live at the ends of the earth stand in awe of your wonders. From where the sun rises to where it sets," listen to this, "you inspire shouts of joy." If you're taking notes, write this down in your notes. My message title and focus is Inspire the Desire. Inspire the desire. And I want you to turn to your neighbor right now, look at them in the eye, no matter how awkward it is, and say, I'm going to find my why in 2016. Say it. I'm going to find my why in 2016. Maybe you already have it, maybe you don't, maybe you have no idea what I'm talking about, but by the end of the service, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's, I believe, a year where you're going to find your why. Maybe you're going to find it today. Maybe it's going to all come together today, but I just believe God wants to inspire a desire in you for greatness in this room. You know, there's something about when inspiration lives with us versus just inspiration visiting us in a moment or in a season. How many people get inspired in moments? Maybe you watched a movie, a TV show, somebody encouraged you, somebody said something, you know, you saw something on the news, something inspired you in a moment, but it wasn't, that inspiration didn't dwell with you, didn't live with you, didn't produce the kind of desire that produces the kind of results that you really wanted to see in your life. And so it was fleeting. It was for a moment. How many know what I'm talking about? There's something different between inspiration living with us, constantly giving us the desire and shaping our life and guiding us, versus it visits once in a while. I get inspired to go to the gym, and then I get bored, and I don't go to the gym anymore. Every New Year's, I get, who's that in the house right now? I get inspired to go to the gym, New Year's resolutions. They say that, you know, gym memberships increase by some crazy, like I think it's 25% every New Year, but then it just drops off, and people have New Year's resolutions, and it's all good. But the reason why inspiration does not live with us is because we don't know why we're doing what we're doing. There's no reason, there's no underlying motivation to keep us inspired, which keeps the desire really high that ends up steering the wheel of our life. Are you with me? Ultimately, we're all destined to produce great results. I don't care who you are in this room, where you come from, your background, or your present situation. Let me tell you this, you are all designed and destined to produce something amazing in life. You're all destined for a purpose. You're all destined to be motivated by a why that leaves an impact in this generation and for generations to come. Every one of you is wired for greatness. It's only a matter of time before you tap into that and figure out, hey, why am I here? Why am I here? Why has this life circumstance seemed to be given to me or handed to me? What good can I take out of this circumstance? Why am I living? What's the reason for living? How many ask that question sometimes? It's okay. We all should be honestly asking that question to ourselves all the time. What is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing? What's the motivation? Why am I here? What is happening to us? When we live day to day inspired, write this down, desire ends up steering the wheel of life. When we live day to day inspired, it turns into desire that ends up steering the wheel of our life, bringing us into right directions and wrong directions, depending on your motivation. Desire, how many know this to be true, that desire can either control you in a good way or control you in a bad way. How many have ever been in trouble because of their desire? Because your motivation. What was motivating you? But hey, there are good motivation. There's good motivation and there's bad motivation. And it's God's desire that you are led by His motivation. Ultimately, God has a plan for your life. And this whole passage that I opened up with, really the central point to this passage, David, the psalmist here, really uncovers God's why. At the same time acknowledging David's reason for living and David's reason for continuing along the journey that he's called to continue on. He also uncovers his why, and we'll go back to that in a second. But humanity, and I want to get some of this stuff out, and I'm hoping this comes out right, because, man, I have a lot of really good life transformation stuff in that iPad right now, but I can't get all of it out to you. So pray that it comes out. Pray that what needs to come out comes out, okay? Can you do that for me? Can you draw it out of me? Can you draw it out of me? Picture that we're in a conversation, and for 40 minutes I'm just staring at you, and you don't say a thing, and I have no idea if you're even listening. How would that make you feel if you were on the other end? So, hey, guys, you got to interact with me a little bit, or I might come down into the aisleway and go into the seats and wait for you to respond a little bit, okay? So don't make me do that, okay? But humanity, all of us are included into this. Humanity spends most of their life looking for why they exist. They don't know that they're doing it, but they're looking for why they exist in what. Everyone say what. What life can give them. And so we go after temporary fixes. We have this God-shaped hole in our soul that we don't know is really meant for God to fill, really meant to understand the why we are here beyond just working a 9-to-5 job and coasting and surviving through life. There's a God-shaped hole that He put in every one of us that's just waiting to connect with heaven's purpose. Just waiting, and you're here for a reason. If somebody invited you, you're here. I believe you're here. You're one step closer to discovering that purpose. You're one step closer to figuring out your why you had the life experience that you did, because God wants to redeem it and make you awesome through it. Every one of us in this room. But humanity spends life looking, searching, new cars, new houses, the next best relationship. We always want what we don't have. We find some sort of fulfillment in what drugs can offer, or, getting drunk on the weekend makes us feel to kind of medicate the pain that maybe we really feel inside that we don't really want to admit, to mask some of the insecurity or the jealousy, or maybe we just don't like life. We're struggling with some sort of depression, or we're down all the time. Whatever it is, we all find things somehow to medicate the hole that only God can fulfill. So we look for what life can give me to satisfy the reason why I really exist. And the whole time, and you don't discover this till after you connect with heaven, the whole time you realize, oh my gosh, the whole time, and all of those whats and all of those things that I was doing to fulfill my life, really I was just searching for why I really exist. You were being magnetized to all these different, and for a season, maybe temporarily, it made you feel like a sense of purpose. And man, I feel really good when I'm doing this, and I feel really good when I inject this, or I feel really good when I go to the casino and I can just let go of all my money and gamble, and maybe I'm going to win, maybe I'm going to lose. I feel really, really good when, I can date this person, date that person, and feel like there's no ties on me, and I feel really good. But all those feelings only last for a moment most of the time. And you'll only get so far until you realize, man, this is empty. This is empty. This is empty. It's because we are all destined for why. Finding your why in life is the fix that you've been looking for your entire life. Why you do what you do and what drives you the way that you do it. And thank God for the Beatles. Everyone say thank God for the Beatles. Because they had this song, I think it's All We Need Is Love. Is that correct? All We Need Is Love, written by Lennon. And You know, it's interesting because that's it's a very true statement. Every soul in this room was destined for love. That's why we all need relationship. Because in the context of relationship, love should be present, right? Right? Unless it's kind of fake. It's fake. Love is what seals the deal. Love, whether it's a friendship or whether it's a wife, a husband, or whatever, boyfriend, girl, whatever it is for you. But love seals relationship. Love is at the core of every healthy relationship. And in love, there's all kinds of things like trust and hope and all these different things. But love really is what we are really looking for. Affirmation. Acceptance. That's why we search and think that if I just do this, maybe I'll get that. We don't know we're looking for it, but really love is what we're looking for. And the Beatles were given this charge, actually, to write a song I don't know if you know the history of this song, to write a song that would speak a language that everybody understood. And so this song was inspired, and Brian Epstein, actually, and I wrote this down as a quote, said this: it was an inspired song, and they really wanted to give the world a message. You know why? Because love inspires. Love is at the core of every why. You tracking with me? Love is at the core of every why you do what you do, why you exist, what drives the how you do what you do. Love really is supposed to be the motivating factor in all of it. All we really need is love. When we have love for something or for someone, it gives us a reason. It gives us a belief system. It creates a why, which then drives our life. Are you with me? We need love, Once you find love and you find its origin, you find the why you exist, I believe this, your purpose is fully fulfilled. Acts 17:28 says, in him, we move and we exist and we have our being in him. In him. When we discover the creator of the soul that you have that feels empty, that's searching for all the things to kind of fulfill and fill those holes, when you really encounter love himself, the creator, because 1 John 4 says that those that do not love do not know God, for God is what? He's love. He is the epitome of love. When you encounter the origin of your soul, when you encounter the creator who designed you perfectly, and you get a hold of that, you get a hold of him, I'm telling you, everything comes into alignment. You may have purpose now, but your purpose goes to a whole other level because now you have the one who created you with a purpose. He is the one, the originator of the why. Let's go back to this passage, and I'm going to stop at verse 5. Let's go to Psalm 65, verse 5. Once again, I'm going to try to speed through this. I hope that you get something out of it this afternoon. You faithfully, David says, you faithfully answer our prayers with awesome deeds. And listen to this one phrase. I want to stay here. Oh God, our Savior. Right there, David acknowledges love. He acknowledges the core that allows him to have a why in life. Why do I want to fight the giants? Why do I want to fight the lion and the bear? Why do I want to sit and be king on a throne over a nation and go through all this hell and struggle? Why do I want to go through the process that I had to go through with Saul, the previous king of Israel? Why? Because, man, he is my Savior. He is the love machine. He is all I need. I'm acknowledging him. I'm acknowledging the why I believe what I believe because he saved me, man. He changed my life. How many know God's changed your life? That's the greatest starting point for the why you exist and why you're here today. David acknowledged this, and in acknowledging it, he also displayed to us, this is God's why, because God has a why. The why really is this, by definition, it's your belief system. Write that down. It's your belief system. What you believe. What you believe is shaped by what you love. You don't love what you don't believe in. You don't love what you don't believe. You love what you believe in. So when love is in its proper place in your life, it forms the why that drives your life. When love is at the proper place of your life, it forms the why that drives your life. And we all need to discover it over and over again. This love that he describes as a savior. Has anybody ever been in a rough spot? Like near-death experience? Car accident, something happened, you knew like, hey, maybe you don't believe in Jesus, maybe you don't believe in God, but you would say there was a higher power. There was somebody, you'd even say that comment. You say maybe you're an atheist, but you say, hey, there was someone looking out for me. There was no chance. Even the doctor said that this is a miracle. You may not believe in miracles, but by the end of today, I believe you might. You probably will believe in miracles. But listen, every one of us has a story where we can say, man, God saved us from something. How many know when you can acknowledge that God defended you, protected you, saved you, was your security in a hard time? How many know this, that when you can say that, you actually feel a sense of love? Man, like to think that there's this God who did all of that for me, that pulled me out of a hard spot, saved me. Well, this is what David was acknowledging. He was acknowledging the why that drove his life, the why that inspired the desire for him to take the actions he did to be successful like he was. Are you here? It's not cold. It's not cold, but God first loved us. And I'm going to skip through some things just for time's sake, but we know that God is love, and I believe this, that your purpose goes to a whole new level when you first understand love. Now we're going to move on to really understanding this whole thing about why. Why do I need to find my why? I have tons of conversations with people, whether it's been on the street, whether it's been in a grocery store or whatever in life, talking to them about the reality of Jesus, not as a religious icon, but as a God who loves relationship. Sharing the stories of like mind-blowing miracles, things that you can't explain, and believing that in those moments, these people that I'm talking to can have the same experience. Sometimes you get into an intellectual conversation and they say, oh, I don't believe that, and I believe this. And, I'd say, honestly, 80% of the time, by the end of every conversation, when somebody says they believe something, we get to the end of it, they believe something, but they don't know why they believe that something. And by the end of it, they're like, well, actually, in the end, I don't really know what I believe. Because in conversation, this ball of yarn is unraveling to the place at the end, and all of a sudden they realize, wait a minute, I don't even know why I believe that. Because in conversation, you just helped me unravel this confusion that I've always lived under. And I've been, how many opinionated people do we have in the house? You can have an opinion about something, a lot of opinions, without any experience or any evidence of whatever you have an opinion about in your life. And you can act confident like you believe this thing. But by the end of it, man, you're going to get to your deathbed and you're going to sit there and be like, man, I actually, after all of that, I talk like I knew what I believe. But because I had no experience in what I believed, really, I don't know why I said I believe what I believed. Man, the why is so important. Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you do what you do? And how do you do what you do, driven from that place? I believe this, when the why is center, like I said, it inspires desire that steers the wheel of life, that brings us into great purpose in life. But we need inspiration to live with us, which is why we need the why in our life. I was thinking of a story recently about how, there's a lot of inspirational people around my life. Josh Bloomfield's actually one of the inspirational people for me, and he's an encourager. I told him, like, he's not an encourager really, he is encouragement. He's just, he walks encouragement. He walks it out. He's an inspiring person to be around. And I love living in a place of inspiration, but I know I can watch a movie. How many of you done this before? I can watch a movie or a TV show and get inspired in a moment. Like, that's it. I'm taking over the whole world. Like, I'm going to do this. Like, I am going to do this. It's going to happen. Anybody like that? Sometimes, like, you that one scene in that movie said this one thing that struck a chord in your heart, your soul, like, I am going to do this thing, man. And you go, and then 2 days later, it's like, I don't have the desire anymore. Because the why wasn't there. You had a momentary visitation from inspiration, but there was no why fueling the inspiration, so inspiration would live with you. I remember, and this is a really random illustration. You're gonna be like, what the heck? But it's one of those things that just like has stuck with me over the years. And I remember one of the first, like the second time they made Batman. I love superhero movies. And I'm not ashamed of it. I love if I could be in a superhero movie, I would leave everything behind and do it. No, I'm just joking. Well, if the opportunity came, I don't know, but I know. But I love superhero movies, and I remember watching Batman, and it was one of the remakes of like the Batman series, and it was a scene out of Batman, and Christian Bale, who played Batman, had, I think, one of his first hard nights. Like, he just become kind of Batman and was kind of testing the waters and had a really hard night. His housekeeper saved his life, basically, and I think he'd been out for a couple days on some sort of drug, narcotic that had been injected into him during this, like, scene. And the next morning, he'd been out, and he wakes up, doesn't know where he is or how long he'd been out for, and the first thing he does is grab this green veggie drink and drinks it and starts doing push-ups. Now you're like, what is Shawn talking about? And that scene, like, it inspired me. I said, I want to be the guy that when I first wake up in the morning, I drink my green drink, get on the floor, and do push-ups. And I'm like, tomorrow morning, how many says, tomorrow morning, when I get up, that's what I'm going to do. I was inspired in a moment. How many know that probably it never happened? That's never the first thing that I've ever done in my life when I get up in the morning. But I had a moment of inspiration. But man, I want to move from that place into a place where inspiration is not just in a moment, it's there forever. And I know that if I can keep my why central and keep my why intact and not fuzzy and keep it clear, I know that I'll live in a place of inspiration. And this is the common thread in some of the most successful inventors, innovators, leaders, CEOs, spiritual leaders of our time. They didn't just have a moment of inspiration, which causes you to go like this, relying on hyper, or event-driven moments like this. No, they had a why. They knew their why. They knew why they were here. They knew why they existed. They knew what they believed, because the why always shapes your belief system. They knew why they were here and what they were called to do. They all had this in common, and I want you to write this down. I think it's going to really affect some of you, because I believe it to be true with all my heart. When inspiration turns into desperation, the world gets innovation. And that's actually what's happened to much of the inventors, CEOs, spiritual leaders of our time. When inspiration turned to desperation, man, they released an amazing sense of innovation to the world. And the world around them began to change. And I have this book here. It's called Start With Why. And I really want to, today in the next few minutes here, draw your attention to some things out of this book. I've alluded to this book in the past. One of my top 2 favorite books of all time. Read it 2 years ago when I was in Mexico. One of those books that really will mess you up, make you think. Sometimes you're on a page for 45 minutes for a whole day, just kind of working it through. I'm the kind of guy that wants to eat it, wants to digest it, and then wants to live it out. I don't just want to read it. I don't like information for information's sake. I am not one of those guys that's magnetized to more information, more knowledge. No, I want to take what I've learned and apply it right away. So even if it takes me a long time, I'm going to eat this thing. I'm going to eat it up. I'm going to digest it. I'm going to, So Start With Why by a guy named Simon Sinek, and really his focus in this book is how great leaders inspire everyone to take action. My heart today is to really inspire you, to inspire a desire in you to change the world around you. Everyone in this world, like I've said over and over again, is designed, is created to change the world around you at some level. You're not just called to coast, to kind of survive. How many people just want to survive and coast? I don't think anybody does. Just kind of make it. No, we're all called to do something incredible. And this book, really what he talks about over and over again, and he actually uses Apple, the computer company, as a reference point for companies and other companies like Southwest Airlines and Continental Airlines and different well-known, billion-dollar companies, to kind of reference the fact that these are the companies that are really successful, and this is why. Because they knew why they existed. They had a belief system. They didn't just make a great product or offer a great service. They knew why they were doing it. They knew why they were doing it. Because he says this, people don't buy what you do, they buy into why you do it. They don't buy what you do, they buy into why you do it, because the why has a sense of feeling attached to it. The what you offer goes up and down. Products change. You can't get too attached to a product. Some of you have had the same phone for 20 years. That Razor flip phone shouldn't still be working. For those that remember the Razor, it was like the most innovative phone of our time at one point, the flip phone. Thank God there's no more flip phones. Anybody have flip phones in here? Good, so I offended nobody with that comment. Awesome. Awesome. But let me just give you some stats here about Apple, and I'm going to try really my best to give you some amazing things. I just want to give you some stats about why he used Apple, just to give you a little bit of clarity on something. Apple's value, this was an article written by a guy who wrote in a magazine called Computer World in 2014. So the stats I'm going to read to you are from February 2014. Listen to some of these stats about Apple. And this is why Simon Sinek, one of the reasons why Simon Sinek would over and over again use Apple as a reference point for his book. Apple's value, as determined by its stock price in February 2014, was $728 billion. That's nearly twice the market value of the world's second most valuable company, ExxonMobil. Some experts actually say that at that time, the stock and the value was undervalued, and they believed that the value of Apple in that time, 2 years ago, was $1.25 trillion. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Some of you are about to why am I using BlackBerry? I don't know either. Apple recently reported revenue of $74.6 billion and a mind-blowing $8 billion in profits for a single quarter, which is the largest quarterly earnings of any company ever. 2014. This is big. Apple reported a cash hoard, as in they had this left over, a cash hoard of $178 billion. That's literally enough cash to buy every car company in America and still have billions left over. So just to give you a little bit of context about the success and about this company. And so Simon goes into discovering and researching about, what makes this company so successful at the top of his game. And page 85, he writes this: why is just a belief? Hows are the actions we take to realize that belief? And what's are the results of those actions? When all three are in balance, trust is built and value is perceived. And when value is perceived, things explode in life. And I'm going to read a few things from this book. And I've never done this before on a Sunday where I've actually quoted so much out of a book, but I actually really feel like God's going to minister to you out of this. And so page 45 out of this book, start with why, says this about Apple. Apple, unlike its competitors, has defined itself by why it does things, not what it does. It is not a computer company that challenges the status quo and offers individuals simpler alternatives. Apple even changed its legal name in 2007 from Apple Computer Inc. to Apple Inc. to reflect the fact that they were more than just a computer company. Practically speaking, it doesn't really matter that what a company's legal name is. For Apple, however, having the word computer in their name didn't limit what they could do. It limited how they thought of themselves. The change wasn't practical, it was philosophical. Apple's why was formed at its founding in the late 1970s and hasn't changed to this date. Regardless of the products they make or the industries into which they migrate, their why still remains a constant. I love this last statement here. And Apple's intention to challenge accepted thinking has proved prophetic. Because their slogan is think differently. Their belief system is not just, hey, we make great computers, the most innovative technology, you should buy it. No, they think differently about everything that they do. That's their philosophy. That's their belief system. They are called to challenge the status quo, to go beyond, to make things better and do things better because they know why they do them. Now, let me just give you Apple's why statement, and I want you to input as I'm talking. I want you to interject. I want you to inject something that relates to your life as I read this. This is Apple's why statement according to Simon Sinek. This is how he words it. Everything we do, this is Apple, we believe in challenging the status quo. That's their belief system. That's the why. Okay? That's why they do what they do. That's the why that shapes how they do what they do. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. And we happen to make great computers. Do you want to buy one? Did you hear that? We happen to see, the focus isn't what they do as much as it is why they do it. Think differently. Whereas other companies would say it like this: hey, we make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? We have the best computer on the block. Look at this billboard. It's got all the RAM that you need. It's got everything. Look at this floppy disk. I mean, it's amazing. We got it all. Want to buy a... No, they don't do it like that. They say, hey, we think differently about it all. And hey, in the end, our product is great computers, but that's not really what we're selling. We're selling an ideal. We're selling a vision. We're selling a feeling to you of being a part of something. That's why every staff member that I've ever talked to that's worked for Apple said it kind of feels like a little bit of like a cult. Because it's a cause. To them, it's more of a cause than just a company. Let me ask you, what's your cause? What's inspiring you in the season? Why do you exist? What makes and drives your life? What is the reason why you're here in this time, in this century? Do you know? Have you connected with the origin of your why, the love of God in your life? Do you know why? Do you know what God has called you to? Do you know what life wants to give you? Do you know the reason? What is your belief system? Because whatever you believe will end up shaping your life. You know, Steve Jobs, this is, in 2000, I think it was 2012 he died, but, when he was around, I mean, he built an incredible company. Maybe he didn't do everything perfect, but nobody does, but he built an incredible company that changed the technological world of our day. It really did. I mean, how many know that, did you guys ever watch Dick Tracy? Remember that movie? Nobody remembers that movie, Dick Tracy? Yeah? Well, it was a big deal to see Dick Tracy talk to his watch. Remember that? Well, now we can all do that because of what Apple has done. They made a talking watch. We can talk to our watch. It talks back to us. Man, there's a woman named Siri in my phone that I can have conversations with. And she answers intelligently. Ask her, hey, Siri, what do you believe? Do you believe in Jesus? And she'll be like, that's not for me to say. I don't get into those kind of conversations. I mean, she's smart, man. Apple did that. It's awesome. All to say is that when you know your why, anything is possible in your life. Anything is impossible. But ultimately, I believe this. We are called to have long-lasting results. And I want to read page 50. And you can write this down, actually, if you are able to. Page 50. It's a part of this here. It says this: knowing your why is not only the only way to be successful, but it is the only way to maintain a lasting success and have a greater blend of innovation and flexibility. Did you hear that? It's not the only way to be successful, but it is the only way to have a lasting success. How many want lasting success? I love that because I'm thinking about this passage that we're in, and go back to our Psalm 65, verse 5. It says this: you faithfully answer our prayers with awesome deeds. So here we have faith. Then it says, oh God, our Savior. We have love. Then it says, you are the hope, which means security and assurance of everyone on the earth, even those who sail on distant seas. Here we have in this one verse, faith, hope, and love. 1 Corinthians 13:13. What lasts forever? Faith, hope, and love will always remain, it says. And the greatest of these is love. Why? Because when love is at the center of your life, it creates and shapes your belief system, which creates desire in your life through inspiration to drive it into the most successful place that you're called to drive it into in your life. Faith, hope, and love. It's powerful, creates a long-lasting effect. I believe this, if you want a long-lasting effect in whatever you do in your life, in family, in relationships, in your business, in whatever you do in life, if you inject faith, hope, and love into the equation, you're going to create a scenario for long-lasting results. Faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love. But there are times when that gets fuzzy. Anybody feel like they started out right, but then they kind of didn't finish right? Anybody in here? You started a new job, career, you started out something and you just didn't, circumstances happened, you started out with a why, a belief system, it began to shape your life, began to steer your life, and then bam, all of a sudden, you just forgot why you started. We've all had those scenarios in our life. We all go through those times. It says here, when a why goes fuzzy, it becomes much more difficult to maintain the growth, loyalty, and inspiration that helped drive the original success. When the why goes fuzzy, how many feel like they're in a fuzzy why season? Anybody? Their fuzzy why. They started off well. No one wants to admit it. It's okay. They started off well, relationship well, whatever. They knew why they got into this thing. They knew why they got into this job. They knew why they came to this church. They knew why they did this thing, moved into this house, onto this street. They knew why, but now circumstances and conflict and opposition has come your way, and health problems and all these different things, and all of a sudden now your why is going fuzzy. You don't know what to do with it. You don't know where you're going, and all of a sudden now you have less ability and less strength to overcome the challenges that you once used to have that you could overcome really easy when your why was a focus. But now, because you don't know your why anymore, you don't know why you even got into this whole thing, the challenge takes you out. The challenge takes you out. How many feel like they've experienced that? Come on, we all have. We all have. I remember when I first started out. You guys okay? Give me a little bit more time here. When I first started out, I started traveling as an itinerant speaker around the world 12 years ago. And I went through a lot of different challenges. Obviously, I didn't really know what I was doing. And like a lot of us, when we first start something, we don't know all the answers. We don't really know what we're doing. We haven't written the manual yet. But I remember, going through this process, I knew my why. I saw everybody this way. My belief system was, hey, I believe there is potential in every single person that has yet to be tapped into because they've yet to encounter the more that God has for them in their life. And so that drove me to the street to share my testimony and my experience with people on the street who were down and out. It drove me to say, hey, this is what happened to me when I turned 19. I had this encounter in my car, and all of a sudden, all the things that I could not believe in myself all of a sudden begin to happen because somebody else believed in me more than I believed in myself. And I began to share these, and I began to share, and I knew my why. My why was I wanted to see everybody reach their potential. And I knew that to reach their potential, man, they're one encounter away from heaven. And if they could just touch heaven, and if I could be a facilitator of that one experience because I had an experience, I knew that everything would change. I knew how they lived their life would begin to change, and I knew what they would produce in their life would change. See, we go from our why, shapes our how, then it affects our what. That was my why. So I began to write curriculum, and I began to develop these schools, three curriculum, and I didn't know what I was doing. I began to write, and I began to write, and I began to write, and after all that I'd gone through, even in high school, where my English teacher said to me, Shawn, you'll never amount to anything. Here I am writing curriculum. Doesn't really make any sense. You know why? Because I encountered a God who believed in me more than I believed in myself. So I began to reflect that everywhere I went, and that was my why. That's what drove me. That's what then inspired desire to go hard and do what I was doing and work a full-time 9.5-hour day a job and then travel on the weekends and do stuff at night. I mean, it was crazy, but I was driven by a why. And then years go by, things happen. I remember when a local church became part of my world. There was a season when my why became fuzzy. All of a sudden, I'm on this track, and then all of a sudden, there's this new track that's, hey, you know what, you want to come onto this track? And I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm supposed to. But then I didn't know how to merge both tracks, and I went through a season. I'm sharing with you a part of my journey. I went through a season where my why became fuzzy, and I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? This is totally not what I thought I was going to do. The how has totally changed. But to think back why I started, the why has always stayed the same. Just my how and what ends up being produced might look a little different. And so every time we go through a hard season, we got to remember why we started. Which is why Jesus says, hey guys, listen, disciples, this is our last dinner together. It's the last time together. Hey, when I go, I want you to do this over and over again in remembrance of me, because you're going to forget your why. You're going to forget why you came on this journey with me in the beginning over 3 years ago. When I first called you out of your vocation, you might forget. When you go through a hard time, when you go through a hard situation, you might forget. So do this communion thing over and over again in remembrance of me. When you remember me, you'll remember your why you started this journey to begin with me. I know when inspiration wanes in my life, I know my why becomes fuzzy. Page 101, I love this quote. People who come to work with a clear sense of why are less prone to giving up after a few failures because they understand the higher cause. Did you hear that? Put that into your own life. People that live day after day with a clear sense of why. People that are going through a hard time in relationships, when they lose their sense of why they started that relationship. When people go through a hard time in business or finances are tight and hard things are happening, when you lose that clear sense of why you began, you are less prone, if you have a clear sense of why, you are less prone to giving up after a few failures because you understand the higher cause. Thomas Edison, who you all know, invented the light bulb, was a man driven by a higher cause, and he says this: I didn't find a way to make a light bulb. I found 1,000 ways how not to make one. Man, that statement alone shows you that he had a why, he had a higher cause. And look what happened. It changed the world. His desire wasn't fame. His desire wasn't selfish gain, wasn't fortune. Hey, he had this why. I'm going to do something that changes the world. His focus was, hey, how can this out here change? And so I know what I'm called to do. I'm called to be an innovator. I'm called to be an inventor. I'm going to create something that changes something. I'm not looking for what it's going to give me personally. I'm looking for what it's going to give everybody else personally. You see the difference? When a what drives you, what ends up happening is it becomes about you, about selfish gain, what you can do, what can be done for you. But when the why drives you, it's the belief system of what you believe about humanity and about the world around you that begins to change everything in you.